Hey folks, Yishai Fleischer here, standing in our nation's capital, Jerusalem, at the Knesset, the parliament, the governing body. And we make policy here for the future of Israel. But the truth is there's Jews all around the world. A stronghold of Jews around the world is in the United States, in America. What's going to be the future of the Jews living in the diaspora? What's going to be with the anti-Semitism that's striking at American Jewry and even at great institutions, places like Harvard and Columbia? There's a young man who's going to be a great leader in Israel, and he's already making waves. His name is Kestenbaum. You probably heard him. You probably heard of his name. He's suing Harvard.
I am the proud plaintiff suing Harvard University for its failure to combat anti-Semitism.
And he is really talking about the problems that the Jewish world has, especially the diaspora, how it needs to be strengthened in its connection to the land of Israel and Judaism, and to push back on small corruption, anti-Semitism, and the fears that the Jewish people face. Kestenbaum was my guest, and I'm honored to bring him to you. Check this out. And right before you do, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, ring the little bell, and also check out our brand new store and support us through the links below. When you support us, you make a tremendous difference. You are really blessing the land of Israel, and I'm sending you blessings right back. Here's my discussion with Kestenbaum. I need to turn to somebody who's more of an expert than me on what's going on campus. And there's a guy who is very cool. He is one of the coolest dudes out there. His name is Kestenbaum. He's so cool that he's got a great cool name. And he's a student activist and elite plaintiff against Harvard University, alleging pervasive and systemic anti-Semitism. He's a regular contributor now on national media, has testified multiple times in front of Congress, as well as the Israeli Knesset, and now is lecturing internationally on Jewish communal issues. Kestenbaum, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I've never been called cool before, so I appreciate it.
Well, you know, you're what we got out there on campus, and you are cool, and you are also, you're putting the fight to them. And there's a big J-Post article that I read about what's going on at Harvard, and Harvard has just released reports, a long, over 300-page report about the systemic anti-Semitism and anti-Israelism on campus. By the way, at the very same time, they also released a report about anti-Islam or Islamophobia on campus, just to make it all equal and politically correct. Shabbos, give us a little bit of a picture. Go back a little bit. Give us a picture of what it was like for you last year, why you decided to sue, and then afterwards, let's get fast forward to what's going on today.
Sure. I mean, first of all, I will go to the anti-Semitism task force because, as you quite rightly articulated, it does not just detail anti-Semitism from October 7th onward. It details the systemic and pervasive nature of anti-Semitism going back decades. So one of the very first paragraphs talks about a student goes up to their professor at the Harvard Kennedy School and says, "Professor, you paired me up with a study partner who's Israeli, and I don't study with Israelis." And the professor says, "You're right. I'm so sorry. I did not mean for you to study with an oppressor." This was happening before October 7th. There were classes that I took part in at the Religion and Public Life Department at Harvard. I studied religion and politics, where professors quite openly stated that their goal is to de-Zionize Jews. They had the goal of taking Jews to what they called Palestine, which was really Ben Yehuda Street, and they pretended it was occupied, and showing them how their efforts of trying to rebuild or build a state of Israel in the 21st century have really made them the oppressors that they were once victimized by. The IOF, the Israeli occupying forces, have become the Nazis that we once were escaping from. So I can really...
I never heard of that term, de-Zionized Jews. Can I just ask you a parenthetical question? Why are they so good with words? Why are they so good with coming up with slogans, words, chants? Like, why are they so fast in that? And I always find that we're like reacting. I like words, and I'm sure you like words. You're great at words. Why are we always behind so much on words?
You're right. Not only are we behind in terms of words and sloganeering, we're also behind in the sense of everything we do is reactionary. We're defensive. We simply respond to arguments as opposed to making the arguments ourselves. And the other side has done this quite well. They have taken the narrative. They control the narrative. And the Jewish people, the state of Israel, many students, Jewish students on college campuses, unfortunately, we don't actually know how to control the narrative. We don't know how to say that, hang on, the issue is not Israel bombing Gaza. The issue is Gaza electing a terrorist organization that raped, mutilated, and beheaded 1,200 Israeli civilians and still hold citizens hostage, including American citizens. So we need to not be on the defensive. We need to be on the offense, because it is the other side that need to defend the fact that they are supporting a dictatorial, tyrannical regime that throws gay people off of roofs. So how do they get so good at this? Well,
wait a minute. Is that what we're offensive about? We're offensive about their badness? Or are we offensive about the awesome, miraculous, historically accurate, world-changing and world-correcting event of the birth of the Jewish state? Like, wouldn't that be better if we're, I mean, is it all about fighting the bad guys, or is it about proclaiming the awesomeness of what is the rebirth of Israel?
I think it's both. I think certainly what you're touching upon is incredibly important. The fact of the matter is that Israel currently is what the pro-Hamas students want a Palestinian state to be. When they talk about, oh, we want a democratic state from the river to the sea, that's what we mean. And when we call for an intifada, we're really just talking about free elections. Israel literally has all of those things right now. When we talk about, oh, we want emancipation for the LGBTQ plus coalition, we want emancipation for women, Israel is all of those things. When they talk about decolonization, Israel is literally the greatest example of decolonization in modern human history. So all of the things that the intellectually challenged morons on Harvard's campus and Columbia's campus and elsewhere that they chant that they want a Palestinian state to be literally already exists. But because it is run, or it is a Jewish majority state, and because of their ingrained anti-Semitism, they can't and refuse to recognize that. So I think it's both. I think on the one hand, we need to paint them as the bad guys. We need to paint them as the ones who are causing the Palestinian people to live in absolute misery. They are the ones who are refusing to recognize and acknowledge that Hamas must be obliterated from the face of the earth. And on the other hand, as you were just saying, absolutely, we have to talk about Israel is a light onto the nations. Israel, if you're an environmentalist, Israel recycles upwards of 90% of all of their water. If you're an LGBTQ plus activist, well, I think the former Speaker of the Knesset was part of that community. I mean,
Current Speaker.
There you go. Anything that the far left, which I very much used to be a part of, so I know the arguments quite well, any argument that they possibly have, literally Israel is a living embodiment of the utopian society that they want to create. But as you said, we have really lost that argument, and we're simply responding to just dumb accusation after dumb accusation. No, Israel does not eat the organs of Palestinians, which is what Mohammed El-Kurd, who's frequently come to Harvard's campus, that is something that he genuinely has professed to be happening. So we need to stop entertaining the delusions of morons and instead go on the offense and talk about Israel, as you just said. Is this 21st century Western style democracy that does have the emancipation that you are looking for in an otherwise horrifically regressive region?
Do you really believe that when they say that they want those things, that that's what they want? Or is it just all the stuff that postures well vis-a-vis the West? We just played a great video of a UAE speaker, and he's like, don't believe it when they tell you that they're trying to build bridges with the West. They're just trying to burn down those bridges. Like, don't believe the hype. The jihad wants submission and suppression. It doesn't really want these things that it speaks of. And then we also played earlier Bernie Sanders, an American Jew, and he's out there calling Israel an apartheidist. And not only that, he's putting out the blood libel that we're starving out Gaza, we're killing children. And we also played a video of President Trump saying Chuck Schumer, he's become a Palestinian. And I don't think he meant that in a good way. He meant that in a derogatory way. He's like, you have lost your Jewish narrative. You are now working for the other side. What's going on with American Jewry, Shabbos? What's going on?
First of all, if you want me to talk about just Chuck Schumer, you're going to have to invite me back for another hour-long podcast. So, look, we know that American Jewry historically has been quite assimilated. We know that American Jewry does not have the same distinct Jewish values that, let's say, a Jew in Israel does, because we are faced with a very secular society. So if you look at polling data, for example, we know that roughly 35% of American Jews voted for President Trump this past November. Now, that might seem like a pretty small amount. That's actually historically unheard of. That is the most votes a Republican nominee has gotten since Ronald Reagan.
From Jews.
Of Jews. And while that number is still historically high, it's quite low. And the reason, I believe, is because so much of American Judaism today, propagated by certain institutions and perhaps even synagogues or denominations, is simply an extension of one political ideology. It's an extension of one political party. It's not necessarily Jewish. It is a political party. And then they have sloganeering to sort of attract or mainstream themselves as a Jewish organization as well. So I do believe that assimilation and secularism have really damaged our community. I think the fact that we had horrific levels of anti-Semitism, we have the state of Israel really facing its greatest existential crisis, arguably since the 1948 War of Independence, and still we could only get 35% of the American Jewish community to recognize that that might be a priority right now, that while, yes, we may agree about combating climate change or a woman's right to choose or legal pathways for illegal immigrants, at the end of the day, we can't talk about those issues if we are dead. We can't talk about those issues if at the time there were 7 American hostages still being held in Gaza. We can't talk about those issues if Jewish students are quite literally being physically assaulted on their campuses or on the subways of New York or the streets of LA. So I do think we have our work cut out for us. I think
is Judaism in Israel cool right now? Would you say, if you're on campus right now, first thing, like what happened to Harvard, that Harvard became this place that's rated at the very bottom of freedom of speech? Like what happened there? That's like weird to me.
Oh,
like, this is supposed to be like a great institution. I was thinking about you. I was like, when he received that letter saying that he got accepted into Harvard, that must have been one of the happiest days of your life, right?
Yeah.
It must have been great. You must have been like, yes, all that work that I did, all the stuff like that is paid. And now I'm going to this great place of higher learning. I'm going to get a great education, meet the best people, and have an amazing career and do great things for myself and for the nation, for America, and for the Jewish people, for Israel.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll tell you a quick anecdote. I actually found out that I was accepted into Harvard when I was going to Auschwitz that morning. And I sort of told my dad, because I had this weird emotional roller coaster. On the one hand, this is a really great day for me. But on the other hand, I'm going to a place, of course, where Jews have been at their lowest, arguably in Jewish history. And my dad actually called me later that night and he says, if anything, it was meant to be that you were going to be in Auschwitz that day, because 80 years ago, the Jewish people were facing one type of circumstance, and 80 years later, look where we are now. So if anything, it was quite moving. But what I will say in terms of the practical political consequences, it is ludicrous. It is a joke, and everyone knows it. Harvard University is currently suing the Trump administration because, among other arguments, they are saying that the Trump administration cutting $4 billion out of the $9 billion that Harvard gets in federal grants. And by the way, Harvard has a $54 billion endowment, which is larger than most countries' GDP. Harvard is seriously arguing that is stifling their free speech. The reason this is a ludicrous argument is because the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expressions, FIRE, which is an American NGO, they ranked about 3 or 4 years ago 248 American universities as to how well did they promote free speech, did they protect the First Amendment, did they encourage intellectual discourse and even controversial ideas. And out of 248 American universities, Harvard was ranked 248th. And by the way, FIRE redid their rankings about 2 years ago. They now did 251 universities, and Harvard was ranked 251st. They actually fell down some slots. So the idea that Jewish students are attacking free speech, leaving aside the fact that your listeners can read our lawsuit, it's publicly available online, almost everything we allege has to do with criminality and not speech. Leaving that argument aside, the idea that Jewish students are attacking free speech, when the reality is the worst institutions for free speech are colleges.
How does an organization like Harvard, how does a university like Harvard be like, how did they get away with that? How do they like look themselves in the mirror? How does that happen that you're like, yeah, we're ranked at the bottom of freedom of speech? Like, what's that about?
That's the $54 billion question, literally. I think this underscores how elitist and out of touch these institutions have become. And people have to keep in mind, the argument today on the far left, at least in the United States, is that Donald Trump is attacking institutions of higher learning. He's attacking these institutions. The reality is there are roughly 6,000 universities in the United States of America. Your listeners can fact check me. It's at least 6,000. He is attacking maybe 7. Maybe. I think 8 if you include like Brown, which he threatened to cut some of their funding. He's not attacking institutions of higher learning because guess what? There are great colleges in this country. University of Austin, which is Barry Weiss's new initiative, Texas A&M, Georgia Tech, University of Michigan, Maryland, Binghamton. There are great colleges. What President Trump is saying, I am going to target the colleges or the universities that have so egregiously violated the civil rights of Jewish students, that have so egregiously stifled free expression and dissent. At Harvard University alone, 97% of the faculty identify as liberal. And I can compare my progressive credentials to you, which I know isn't saying much, or to most people any day of the week. I'm kind of a liberal. It is not good when 97% of the staff, of the faculty at an institution, arguably the most important one, is teaching one narrative, one philosophy.
That's actually illiberal. That's actually
Exactly.
illiberal.
And that's what I said at the Republican convention. I said my contention with Harvard is not its liberalism, it's its illiberalism. It's telling students not how to think, but what to think. And the president is making this argument. You can teach what you would want, what you would like. But the fact that you demand $800 million in annual subsidies from the American taxpayer, the fact that you demand $9 billion in federal contracts, that is ludicrous. You are not entitled to anything. And that money can really go to some good work for other institutions of higher learning that could really use the money.
Shabbos, what does it say though about the United States if Harvard is infiltrated with this one ideology, with anti-Israelism, with Palestinianism, with anti-Semitism, with systemic anti-Semitism, that students feel bullied? I mean, what is that really saying? Because again, this is the flagship. This is the leadership of America. These are your next senators, right? This is the next leadership of the United States. Like, what is it saying to us about America? About the future of America? Like, okay, you're saying it's only 7, but it's the big 7.
Yeah. Well,
what's the future?
I think the problem is really animated by what you were saying earlier. It's because this Palestinianism, which is how Dr. Einat Wilf describes it, is such a pervasive ideology that has been able to sweep and poison and infect our allegedly brightest minds in our country. And if Harvard can fall, if Columbia can fall, if UCLA and Yale, if all these institutions can fall, and these are meant to be, at least on paper, intelligent, thoughtful, well-educated individuals, then kal v'chomer, how much more so people who are more susceptible to conspiracy theories, people who are more susceptible to anti-American narratives, they will also be swept up into this craziness. And by the way, our ideological adversaries know this. That is why the Chinese Communist Party is pushing TikTok down the throats of young people. This is why Qatar and Russia and China and Saudi Arabia are funneling billions of dollars into our institutions of higher learning, because they know what Hitler said 80 years ago. Those who control, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't actually remember the exact quote, but those who control the mind of the youth control the future. Our ideological adversaries know this. They know how important young people are in this country. The Palestinian people know this. Qatar knows this. China knows this. Russia knows this. And it's about time that if we really want to insist on our American values, if we want to insist on our liberal democracy and of the state of Israel and all that it represents, we have to get just as aggressive as they are. And I'll make this one last point because, sorry, I give long answers. Israel, as you talk about extensively, and you're absolutely right, is a powerhouse of talent, of just immense minds coming together to solve some of the world's toughest issues. There are great universities in the state of Israel. And to me, it is a no-brainer that the state of Israel, or those colleges in the state of Israel, should be spending as much money as they can to recruit young Americans, young American Jews as well, to go to Israel. You've seen the craziness on your campuses since 10/7. Leave it behind. Go to a place where your talents will be utilized. Build up a place where there is a lot of innovation and creativity happening.
Shabbos, I dare say that this idea that you're saying now is actually could be a great thing for you to be at the forefront of. No, really, you would be a great, come out here, do a MA, PhD, whatever, and you could be a great spokesman for that to bring American students to Israel. And I agree with you. What an opportunity. By the way, and I'll talk about this later on the show, one of the things that I think Israel underutilizes is medicine. The truth is that Israel is a powerhouse of medicine and should be having not just medical schools for Israelis, which we do, but not enough spaces, but make giant medical schools where we're inviting the world to come study here. Let's compete with Bologna and with Jamaica and with Budapest for those international students. We could bring people here to study medicine, maybe make it a little bit cheaper, and at the same time have that great tradition of Jewish medicine. So we got to push that, and I actually think that could be the next big Israel brand, which is a place of higher education. Come here and study. Come here and study different things. And I agree with you. We do have great institutions here, but we got to promote that to the world. And for example, I work in the town of Hebron. Our sister city is Kiryat Arba. One of its cottage industries is education. People from all over the country come to our yeshivas and other schools there because they're great schools, because the type of people that live there are ideological. They make great teachers. And so therefore there's great institutions. People come from all over. I think people can come from all over the world to study in Israel. What do you think?
By the way, just in the last few days, Joe and Mindy Gray gave a $125 million donation to Tel Aviv University's medical school. And
Wow.
again, that is exactly what needs to happen. It's not enough for people to say, I'm not going to donate to Columbia, because that's obvious. I think anyone who's donating money to Columbia University, to quote our president, should have their head examined. I mean, you're funneling anti-Americanism and political indoctrination. So it's not enough to just not give money to certain places, but give it somewhere else. Daniel Loeb, for example, who's the philanthropist extraordinaire, not only has he stopped giving money to Columbia University, he's redirected the money to Yeshiva University, saying, I want people to have strong Jewish foundations, have a Jewish education. So too, Joe Gray said, it's not enough that I'm not going to donate to anti-American institutions. I want to build up other institutions like Tel Aviv University's medical school. So that's something that I definitely would want to help amplify as much as possible, because young people need to know there are great colleges and universities out there, and they're not just called Harvard, Penn, and Columbia.
The podcaster Ben Kentish ask questions of a Columbia student. Let's watch this together.
Has a right to exist.
I believe Palestinians have a right to equal rights. I believe Palestinians have a right to return to their homelands. Since 75 years ago, Palestinians have been systematically forced out of their homes. And
do you think Israel has a right to exist?
I'm so sorry. I have a longer answer to this question.
Okay, but it didn't, with respect,
yes.
It didn't sound like you were answering.
I appreciate that you believe that. It's a longer answer because it's a more complicated question.
Go on.
There's a difference between believing that Jewish individuals should be or have a right to be in Palestine, and believing that Israel as a country should be allowed to continue what they're doing.
Bottom line is that you could guess that this young lady was unable to at every point say that Israel has a right to exist. But notice that she was indeed sporting the keffiyeh. She has a lingo, she has a look, she has the swag, and she has the slogans, and probably she has a society, a boyfriend, whatever it is that comes from that thing. It's like a place to meet people. It's the cause celeb. It's the new 60s. It's the thing to riot against. And again, I'm very concerned with the power of cool, which I think really is not we're not exploiting properly right now.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. Look, Harvard has, I think at this point it's safe to say it's an infamous, but they have a weekly Keffiyeh Thursday. There's roughly half a dozen Palestinian clubs at Harvard. I mean, it's just enormous. The Harvard Out of Occupied Palestine, the Harvard Palestine Solidarity Committee, grad students for Pal, Jews for Pal, lots of different Palestinian groups. And they've all come together. And this is not post-October 7th. This has been for years, that every Thursday, students from all the different schools at Harvard, the medical school, the college, the law school, will all get together on the steps of Widener Library, which is the heart and soul of Harvard, and they take a picture all wearing their keffiyehs, and that's it. And they post it on Instagram, and it gets, great likes and great shares. And it is definitely the cool thing. It's the popular thing. In fact, there was a classmate of mine who took part in the encampments, and she was actually, she is now a he, although that's a story for another time. But at the time, she wrote an article saying the encampments as a religious expression. What did she mean by that? This is someone who did not grow up in a strongly Jewish household, did not have a real affiliation with the Jewish synagogue, never really went to Jewish summer camp, didn't really go to Jewish day school. And they really believed that the most sincere expression of their Jewish values was to take part in the encampments, call for an intifada, follow Jews on their way to class, because at its core, they were looking for meaning. She was looking for something whereby she can have a community, she can have friends, she can be part of something bigger than herself. And the Palestinian cause on campus have been able to do that masterfully. They've been able to take individuals who are looking for other things to fill that void, and they're able to say that it's Palestine, it's Palestinianism that fills that void. And the Jewish community, and in particular Jewish groups on campus, for many reasons, we haven't really been able to adopt that as well. We haven't been able to say, well, it's kind of cool and it's kind of meaningful to also be part of the greatest decolonization effort in human history. Right. And whether it's wearing a kippah, I mean, I don't know if that really excites people, but we have to do something tangible that shows young people that the meaning that they are looking for, the movement they are looking for, it already exists, and that's Israel, and you should get involved.
Malka, my wife, showed me a great video about a young lady explaining how today some of the brands, the consumer brands, are cultish-like, and that when you buy into that brand, you're buying into a society. There's a great pleasure that you get from getting that new Stanley Cup, or that or the new tote bag or whatever it is, and there's like a whole, like, people stand in line, and the analysis is that people with the shrinking of religion as a place that you find meaning and purpose in this world, the brand replaces that. And your sacrifice is the great cost that you're paying for, the ridiculous cost that you're paying for the Stanley Cup or for the new bag. But it gives your life purpose and meaning. It's very sad. It's kind of pathetic. But what you're describing in Palestinianism is also that it's community. It's moral superiority, which is something that young people at Harvard desperately crave, right? I am smarter than you. I'm a gift to the world, and therefore I am also a moral gift to the world. Now I'm teaching to you what is contra common sense, but because I'm smarter, I'm able to gift it to you because I'm morally superior, virtue signaling, etc. Israel has not been able to create a brand around itself at this time, anyway, which is cool. And that you wanted to be part of that brand. It's not like that.
Yeah, I think there are 2 points here. One is the larger point, which is religion, and in particular the Hebrew Bible, was really a foundation of Western civilization. It really guided and centered our social fabric and our sense of morality. And with the eroding of religious values, and again, in particular, the Hebrew biblical values, we've sort of seen lots of different things try to replace it. It's consumerism, it's materialism, it's Palestinianism, all of these different types of isms. But now we're sort of grounded in this moral relativism as opposed to biblical traditions. And we're seeing the consequences of it now, where young people genuinely believe that the moral cause is to identify not merely with the Palestinians, but to also identify with the struggle of Palestinian resistance. And if one needs to blow up a nightclub or blow up hospitals or blow up nursing homes, then fine, that is simply the cost of decolonization, which is why, by the way, in the United States, Luigi Mangione, who was the Penn graduate who shot to death Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, in broad daylight, he was condemned by all age demographics in the United States, resoundingly, with one noted exception, and that was young people aged 18 to 26. Why? Wow. Because we had been fed on our campuses, and even younger than that. I mean, the House Education Committee the House Committee on Education and the Workforce had a hearing on K through 12 anti-Semitism, and it found this isn't just a campus problem. This is being indoctrinated as early as 3rd and 2nd grade. Why? Because we as young people on our campuses and our high schools are being taught that the entire world can be classified into 2 categories. You're the oppressor or the oppressed. Jews, certainly American Jews, have the misfortune of being mischaracterized as white. So whether it was 4 babies or 40,000 babies beheaded on October 7th, it really doesn't matter because, as my classmates will tell you, as they've told me, resistance is justified when people are occupied. Luigi Mangione was some victim of this non-tangible system. Right? He had his healthcare claims denied. And therefore, because he's a victim, he is a part of the oppressed class, he can literally do whatever he would like to get rid of that oppression. And if that means assassinating a father of 4 in broad daylight, then so be it, because that's the cost of decolonization and unoppressing oneself. And I remember I was part of a delegation of the Israel Foreign Ministry about 2-3 months ago, and we had a meeting with the foreign minister, Gideon Saar. It was myself and Jewish American content creators, although actually not all of them were Jewish, which is great. And we basically had this roundtable discussion on an issue that you talk about quite often and that the Israeli public know is a bad problem, which is the PR disaster. Israel is pretty good for the most part at winning wars against Lebanon, winning wars against Hamas, hopefully winning wars against Iran, but they're not so good at winning the war of ideas, the social media front, the battle on our campuses, the battle for the hearts and minds of young people. And I'm sure the foreign minister has had many such iterations of these meetings, and foreign ministers before and after him will have more iterations of these such meetings. But at its core, it is true, and you don't need a young American to tell you this. I think you know this quite well. Israel is losing tremendously the hearts and minds of young people, and in particular, young Americans. And the reason why that's so important is because whether this should be the case in the future, and I think we can have a good conversation about that. The reality is today, Israel is reliant and dependent on American foreign aid. Again, should that be the case in the future? Good conversation. But for right now, it is. And Israel is reliant on Americans supporting them, not just in the evangelical community, because the bad news is young evangelicals are also slowly turning against Israel. And the longer this war goes on, the more you will see these trends continue. I remember Ben Shapiro last year. He had
which war? You mean the longer the war in Gaza goes on? Could be. I would say to you the longer the longer we're acting in a weak fashion.
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
if we had a robust war and we're very clear about it, I think we'd win a lot of hearts and minds.
I completely agree. The longer the war goes on, as it is currently going on, then the worse the trend will get. And this is going back to what Ben Shapiro said last year, which was every time, and this is very cynical, but it's true, every time there is a tragedy that befalls the Jewish people, whether it's in Israel or elsewhere, there's sort of this imaginary clock that starts. Whether it's 30 days, 3 months, there's a clock. Israel has a limited amount of global sympathy. And once that clock runs out and the sympathy is over, then you can't really rely on international partners or the support of people to really help your cause. So if Israel had done what they needed to do immediately, and again, I'll leave that to the IDF. I'll leave that to you and your expertise. Instead of graveling and ground standing and being concerned about what the rest of the world thought of them, instead have a decisive victory so forcefully and so quickly that no enemy will dare threaten you ever again. That will garner respect. A weak Jew is something that is not respected anymore. It is a strong, powerful Jew who responds in such overwhelming, disproportionate force, you never once think to attack or challenge them ever again. That is what will garner Israel respect, not just on the international stage, but on our campuses as well.
That's right. I agree with that 100%. And I think also strong Jews on campus as well. By the way, just wanted to tell you that I was on campus only 2 weeks ago with Minister Ben-Gvir at Yale.
Oh, right.
Did you see that? We spoke at Yale.
We saw that. We saw that.
Yeah,
and again, going back to this argument of free speech, there's only one side of the equation who was throwing water bottles at the other side. Only one side trying to disrupt. Only one side that caused such a dangerous commotion that there needed to be security. And newsflash, it wasn't you and it wasn't the Jewish students. So whether people agree with Ben-Gvir or not, it's literally irrelevant. The fact of the matter is at Yale University, you are unable to have important conversations because only one side of the equation is so hell-bent on destroying free speech, they will not allow the speech to continue, and they will create a dangerous environment for people who want to engage in that intellectual discourse.
Indeed, it was a victory for freedom of speech. We did speak there, meaning to say Rabbi Shmuley Hecht, the Shabtai Institute overcame the challenges. And yes, there were bad guys out there, but we went there and spoke, and now just today, the video came out of that talk. And so people could see it for themselves, what we conversed, what students asked. You know, it was a real discussion. And I think it was a victory for the minister to have his opportunity to speak, but it was also a victory for, as you say, freedom of speech. Okay, last comments, Shabbos Kestenbaum. What's next? First thing, what's next on the Harvard lawsuit, and what's next for you? What's next for the Jewish people?
Oh, wow. 3 big questions. Well, I could answer the first one first. That's easier. Currently, our lawsuit is in the midst of discovery. So Harvard is asking for a bunch of documents from me. So I'm giving them thousands of pages of my emails and phone calls. And it's not particularly exciting, but if they want it, go for it. They issued a 999-page subpoena against my yeshiva in Israel, Aish Torah, which really underscores their total disregard of morality and common sense. Because again,
what were they subpoenaing?
It's sort of unclear because again, it sounds to see my text.
Oh, like is this one of these? Is these one of these a Christian Jewish debates where they're looking in the Talmud for
right,
what
exactly.
we like? So Talmudic ritual,
exactly.
You know what we believe. That's what's going on there.
Exactly. No, it's a total scare tactic. They're doing this with any rabbi I've essentially had a conversation with to scare and intimidate young Jews, but it's really not going to work. What's more important is discovery is a two-way street. So we're asking for all the documents pertaining to how much is Qatar and Russia and all these foreign countries funneling into your university. Why is it that you promote anti-Semitic professors? Why is it you did not discipline in any way any of the pro-Hamas encampment leaders who violated not only internal Harvard policy, but state law? So that's what we're in the midst of right now with the discovery process. Based on what we find in discovery, we'll then go into deposition. So we very much want to depose former President Claudine Gay, current President Alan Garber, and hopefully then that will lead to a trial. In terms of what's next for me personally.
Wait. Just one more second.
Yeah.
What is your goal in suing Harvard?
Sure. The goal is kind of twofold. On a grandiose level, it is to show that Jewish people, in particular young American Jews, are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We are very proud to be Jewish. And yes, we're also proud to be American. And I never felt this sense of other. I never felt like a foreigner. I very much felt that I belonged in this country. And we can talk about being in Gullus and being in exile and the Jewish and halachic ramifications of this. But point being, I'm very proud to be an American. And I'm not going to cede that territory. So on a grandiose level, it's to show that we are fighting back.
What if the territory, it's not that you're not ceding the territory is going away from you.
So in the United States,
or somebody else is taking over that territory.
Right. So I agree with you when it comes to in particular particular institutions like Harvard and Columbia and Penn, but I don't agree that that's the United States as a broad concept, because these institutions are not just anti-Semitic, they're also anti-American. So when I say I'm not going to cede the territory, I'm not going to allow the United States to continue following in the direction of irredeemable institutions like Columbia. So that's, grandiose level. And then the practical is, look, number one, we want full tuition reimbursements. I'm not paying $1 for an institution that cannot call out the murder and beheading of Jewish babies. The second thing is we want there to be a zero tolerance policy for anti-Semitism in the same way there already is.
Wait, you're claiming financial what was the word? Damage.
Yeah, of course. I mean, in addition to tuition reimbursements, when I signed up for Harvard, I was expecting an educational experience, and we've had diminished educational opportunities, and Harvard needs to be on the hook for that. The fact that I had a private armed guard outside my house because a Harvard employee threatened me with a machete, Harvard needs to be on the hook for that. We also want to make sure there's a zero tolerance policy for anti-Semitism in the same way there already is for racism and sexism and all those other isms. We want to make sure that anti-Semitic professors who have so clearly violated internal Harvard policy and have poisoned the minds of young people with this political indoctrination are disciplined and following Harvard's own protocol. We want to make sure they're transparent and rescind the hundreds of millions of dollars in donations from these anti-American countries. We want to make sure that there's mandatory Title IX training for anti-Semitism, again, in the exact same way there already is for like sizeism and transphobia and all these other phobias and isms. So we're not asking at its core for special treatment under the law. We're asking for equal treatment under the law so that no student, Jew, Christian, Muslim, black, white, has to go through what I went through. And it's a damn shame that Harvard, rather than making these concessions, which are pretty obvious, are instead fighting us tooth and nail in court and issuing a 999-page subpoena against my yeshiva, which, again, go for it. In terms of, the next steps for me, October 6th, I was a nerd writing mediocre research papers in the library. I was thinking about maybe going into education, but I've been so blessed and fortunate to be given a platform. As limited as it is, it's still a platform nonetheless. And I want to continue to take advantage of that. So I think it'll probably be something in the political public policy space, not too sure what, but certainly will always be in the service of the American Jewish community and the Jewish people. And then lastly, what is the future of the Jewish people? I can answer that twofold. I can answer the Jewish people broadly and then the American Jewish community specifically. The Jewish people do not need Harvard because Jews will continue to be innovative and resourceful and creative. Harvard really needs Jews. It's the other way around. And if Harvard really wants to insist on accepting radical, loud students who burn American flags and call for an intifada and disrupt our classrooms, I mean, go for it. But we're so much better than you. Not just Jews. The American people are just so much better than you. So the Jewish people will get through this because we've gotten through it before. And not only will we get through it, but we will become stronger as a result. We have 3,000 years of Jewish history and the Jewish story to look back upon. And I'm very, very proud to be part of that story. In terms of American Jewry in particular, I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but I am asked this a lot by Israelis. Well, why don't American Jews just move to Israel? If American Jews were just going to move to Israel, they would have done it shortly after October 7th. And we didn't really see that boost. Whether we should have seen that boost, why we didn't see that boost, that's a good conversation for another time, but we didn't really see it. So rightly or wrongly, good or bad, American Jews, for the most part, are probably going to stay in America. They probably won't stay in New York or California, but they're going to move to Florida and North Carolina and Texas. As
the big question to me is, and I've been in this world for a long time. So I know about the Israel-America tensions and why people move, why people don't. The big question really is like this. When a young boy or girl says to their parents, I'd rather go to the IDF than go to Harvard next year, or I'd rather go to Bar Ilan than go to Binghamton. Like, will the parents say, is the shift of the parents say, like they say in South Africa, or they say in France, they say, good for you, go, good. Or what they used to say in America, which is, what are you talking about? You're not going over that crazy country. You're staying right here. And, that's a great question. The change.
I
know what? Hold on one second. Before you answer that, let me bring on the co-hostess with the mostest. Malka Fleischer is here with me. Hold on one second. Malka, shalom.
Hi, Yishai. Hi, Shabbos. How are you guys?
Hello.
We're great. Malka, do you have any questions or thoughts about the amazing stuff that Shabbos has been talking about?
Shabbos is like making me so happy and so sad at the same time. Like he's such a good advocate and a spearhead, and that's exactly what we need in these like yucky places, to like, I don't know, to chisel into like all that muck and to just fling it away. And I feel like Shabbos and his cohorts are doing exactly that. At the same time, it's like a horrible mess, and even as Shabbos is talking about the Qatari influence. There's a story that President Trump might be accepting like a huge, I mean, you can call it a gift. One could call it something else. I don't know.
The Flying Palace, $400 million airplane.
$400 million, like, anyway, it's just like
flying,
a flying like emperor
mansion,
right. And so you're just kind of wondering where like it's all headed. You know what I mean? It's all seems so fluid. Definitely for students on campus, and my heart has really been with the students on campus, and I've been very frustrated with myself. And with you, Ishai, and with everybody else in the
what else is new?
Pro-Israel space. Now, this is bigger than like, did you get the dishes done?
Maka, Shabbos only has a few minutes left. What's your question?
This is like, how is it that we have not managed to help Shabbos and people like Shabbos across campuses throughout the United States and really the world to shore up their communities and help them in their messaging so that they wouldn't be going through less of this intimidation and lonely isolation?
Sure, it's a great question. And I think, number one, it is a damning indictment on the Jewish establishment and the Jewish nonprofits in the United States. They have raised collectively billions of dollars on an annual basis, oftentimes using the images of Jewish students like myself for their donors, saying we, help kids, and they should really be hanging their heads in shame and begging for our forgiveness. There was actually a letter organized by former Jewish leaders in the last 10, 20 years, former head of the AJC, former head of the federations, and they're saying they're just so distraught by the Trump administration is doing as it pertains to campus anti-Semitism, and this is not Jewish values. And as I'm reading this letter and I see the signatories, it sort of crosses my mind. I mean, the gall to put your names on this letter, you should really be begging for our forgiveness, because people often say, Shabbos, how did the anti-Semitism get so bad on campuses? And my answer is, I don't know. I'm only 25. I should ask you guys this. I just got here. How did the leadership allow this to get so bad so quickly?
Oh, man.
Right. And even let's say they were caught with their pants down, right? It's been like a year and a half.
Yeah. So I think
a year and a half,
so much longer.
And you would think that everyone
Shabbos is right. It hasn't been a year and a half. They've prepared for this moment, but we know for so long it's been brewing and brewing. This has just been as we say in Judaism, makeh b'patish, like the final hit on a preparation.
Lahavdil, I think there should be in Israel on October 7th public commission and inquiry. How did this happen? Lahavdil, I think there needs to be in the United States a public inquiry, a public commission on how did the alphabet soup of Jewish nonprofits that have so much money and purport to have so much levels of access, and anytime the community's in trouble, we're the ones who are going to do it. And at best, they were unprepared. That's being generous. And at worst, they allowed this to happen. They didn't spend time and money as much as they should talking about anti-Semitism and Jewish pride in the land of Israel. They did it on a lot of this woke nonsense, especially after Black Lives Matter in 2020. And everyone knows it, but no one has had the humility to acknowledge or apologize for it. The second point I wanted to make, and I know we're running out of time, is when it comes to young American Jews, anecdotally, I speak across campuses, I speak across the country, I do like 2 or 3 speaking events a day or every other day. I have seen young people in particular are way more confident and way more proud of their Jewish values, of the land of Israel. I can tell you story after story. I'm happy to come back and tell you those stories. The problem is, as always, the Jewish parents. I'll tell you one quick anecdote and then I'll stop. I gave a talk last week at a shul in LA, a synagogue in LA, and I give 4 different talks all on anti-Semitism, our lawsuit at Harvard. And this mom comes up to me and she says, I just want you to know I'm still sending my kid to Harvard, with a very smug look on her face. And again, I never tell people where they should or shouldn't go, with the exception of Columbia. I think you have to be brain dead to go there. But I said, okay, at the very least, I think you should read the anti-Semitism task force that Harvard released. And she said, yeah, maybe, and then walked away. So it's not really the kids I have concerns with, it's the adults. And people should be going to Israel, not because they're escaping idiots who draw swastikas in their dorm room. They should not be going to Israel because of, mean people on the subway. Don't run away, run to Israel, because it's the land of our forefathers and foremothers, because it is the place where you can be a radically authentic Jewish person and live your best Jewish self. That's why you should go to Israel, because it is a miracle. I was telling a group of 9th graders a few days ago, if you would have told your great-grandparents, they were going on a JNF trip the following week to Israel, if you would have told your great-grandparents, you're going to the state of Israel, and you're just taking a flight, And they would not have believed you. They would have thought you were making this up. We are living in miraculous times, and that's why you should go to Israel. Not because you're escaping. Don't run from, run to. And that's the message I want to keep spreading as I travel and continue to talk.
Shabbos, thank you so much for joining us. I want to leave you with just one tiny thing, which is just there's a pasuk that says, there's a verse in the Torah that says that you're supposed to shoo away the mother bird if you want to take the chicklets, the chicks, or the eggs.
Chiclet is a kind of
There's a gum. The chicks. Yeah. And I once, when I was younger, when I was approximately your age, I thought to myself, what that means is, and about American Jews, you got to sometimes push away the parents so you could take the young people, because the parents, they're the ones that are blocking the young people from going ahead. And I kept that shut in my mouth because I knew it was such a radical explanation for that verse. And I found the Baal HaTurim, a famous Jewish commentator, who explained it just like that. I'll be happy to send it to you, where he basically says that in the desert, he had to shoo away a generation of the parents so that he could take the children into the land of Israel. So I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. I very much appreciated your critique of Jewish organizations. I think that's not, no, because I think it's not said enough. It's not said enough, and I agree with you on such a deep level. I think that there's a level of corruption in the Jewish world. I don't mean the kind of corruption people put money in their pocket. I mean a kind of corruption where it's slow and bloated, and nothing really happens, and there's billions of dollars, but no real action is taken. And I agree with you, and I appreciate that you're bringing out. Shabbos Kestenbaum is a student activist and the lead plaintiff against Harvard University, and alleging pervasive and systemic anti-Semitism. He is a contributor on national media now, has speaking gigs all the time, has spoken and testified in front of Congress, and is making a big difference in our world. Shabbos, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right. That was really fun to have Shabbos with us, Malka.
He's awesome.
He is awesome. All right, folks. Yishai Fleischer here at the Knesset. Thank you so much for joining me. I got to get in there and take care of some business for the future of the Jewish state. I know that you're a fighter for the Jewish state, so please check out the links below, including fightforisrael.org, our store, our new YouTube store, which we're very proud of, the comment section below, a subscription. You can subscribe, ring the little bell. There's so many things you can do to stay a part of it. When you're a part of it, when we're together, we're stronger. God bless you wherever you are. Blessings from the land of blessings, and shalom.